In my last video, I briefly talked about how many large projects during the Eisner era of Disney had budgets slashed and corners cut for the sake of saving money, but I never went into why. One of the biggest reasons was Disneyland Paris. The European park was, by nearly all accounts, amazing, a true masterpiece of a Magic Kingdom, but there was one key problem. The people of France didn't want it. It doesn't matter how good your park is, if no one wants it, no one is going to come to it. The financial failings of Euro Disneyland sent the whole company into a crisis, which led to budgets being reduced for future park projects. After all, you can't lose money if you don't spend it. The next two parks to open after Disneyland Paris took very different paths in response to this issue. California Adventure made cuts across the board, reducing the quality and simplifying nearly every aspect of the park. They did the whole park half-baked. In contrast, Animal Kingdom whole-baked half of a park. Looking back, it's pretty clear what was the better plan.
I learned a lesson. Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
Of the 4 lands that were planned for opening day, only Africa and Dino Land actually made the cut. Asia was under construction on opening day and was finished about a year later. The 4th planned area, Beastly Kingdom, had a much more interesting history though. This land was going to be dedicated to dragons, unicorns, and other mythological animals, but it got delayed to be part of a Phase 2 for the park. Of course, Beastly Kingdom never did actually open. That's an interesting story for another day. For now, I'm more focused on what they put in the spot it was originally meant for. At first, they were going to leave this space blank, but as the park was nearing completion, Disney realized that just having 2 underdeveloped lands was not going to cut it. They needed more, but Animal Kingdom was already over budget and it wasn't that long before it was set to open. They didn't have the time nor the money to make anything too exciting. Plus, whatever they built, they wanted to be able to tear down quickly in just a couple years for Beastly Kingdom, since they were still planning to include that in Phase 2. Thus, Camp Minnie-Mickey was born. A small land built in very little time, with very little money, and mostly out of leftover props from other parks, and designed to only last for about 2 years. In my last episode, I talked about California Adventure, which was baffling because it was terrible. Camp Minnie-Mickey is baffling because it isn't. Against all odds, it kind of worked. Saying that Camp Minnie-Mickey was designed last minute is really kind of an understatement. This 1995 press release was still advertising Beastly Kingdom as a major part of the park, just 3 years before it was set to open. In this promo video filmed not long before the park opened, Joe Rohde, the lead designer for Animal Kingdom, doesn't even mention Camp Minnie-Mickey, or imply its existence at all. Listen to him list all the lands they had planned.
And from there, you depart to these various realms of adventure: Africa, Dino Land, Asia, a variety of experience.
I'm having trouble finding exactly when that video was filmed, but if I had to guess, it looks like it was within a year of the park opening. There is other evidence that I've found that seems to confirm that work on this land didn't start until late 1997, with the park opening in April of 1998. Less than a year to make Camp Minnie-Mickey. So Imagineers didn't have much time and had to build a land based around what they could do quickly. And what theme could be easier to build out of a wooded area in North America than the wooded area in North America? They built a simple land based on a summer camp in the Adirondack Mountains. Somewhere the residents of Toontown could come to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and unwind out in nature. It's a very small and quiet area without too much in it. One of the simplest lands in Disney history. One of the big draws was the character trails. 4 gazebos with walk-up pathways, with each one hosting different characters. Usually a rotation of Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Chip and Dale, Balloo, Pocahontas, or Winnie the Pooh. All in a nice shaded setting. Sometimes you can see other characters just kind of wandering around Camp Minnie-Mickey too, not just in the gazebos. There was no restaurants in the land, but there were 2 quickly built food stands. Looking at all the elaborate signs on these stands, I feel like it's redundant for me to say this. This stand was named Forest Trail Funnel Cakes, and this one was Chip and Dale's Cookie Cabin, which later started selling hot dogs. Dining wasn't the only area where corners were cut. Even the bathrooms were designed cheaper and quicker than the rest of the park. The best example of this is the sinks. Usually Disney uses countertop-style sink setups for all of the public bathrooms. But this land uses separated-style sinks, which are cheaper and easier to take down or set up. There really wasn't much here, and what was here was simple. In any other context, this land would have come across as really boring. But here, it captured something special. A very unique charm in a very unique park. Instead of making it feel cheap, the low budget almost walks in the land's favor, giving it a rustic and authentic feeling. A weakness turned into a strength, and that is far from the only example of that in this land. See, in most cases, statues of characters break the immersion. Theme park lands are supposed to transport you to another world where these characters live. Seeing still statues takes away that feeling. How can the world feel alive if the characters in it aren't? There's a reason these kinds of decorations are usually reserved for hotels and stores. And Universal. But something about the very quiet and quaint nature of Camp Minnie-Mickey changes how these statues affect the land. They don't feel frozen in place. They feel still, calm, relaxed. They add to what makes the land special, rather than take away from it. Similarly, 9 times out of 10, if there was a land with next to nothing in it, theming-wise, but trees and a snazzy drinking fountain, it would feel empty and lazy, a waste of space and underdeveloped. But Animal Kingdom isn't like most parks. The entire entrance land, the Oasis, has guests walking uphill through winding paths, to force guests to slow down. Put them in the mindset that they are here to wander and explore, to get lost in the woods and discover natural beauty. Camp Minnie-Mickey might be empty in the traditional sense, but in the context of Animal Kingdom, it is breathtakingly full of wonder. It's a place to explore, to discover. If this was stuck in the back of Magic Kingdom, it would be such an incredibly dull experience. But in this specific time and this specific place, it became something special. Of course, there was more to this land than just snacks and some characters along a fancy nature trail. I want to take a moment to give a shout out to yesterland.com, ran by Warner Weiss. They are a fantastic resource for info about Disney attractions that don't exist anymore. They're far from the only source of information I go to for my videos, but they're always the first place I go. I mention them here because they were able to do a fantastic interview with Jim Korkis, a Disney historian who was involved with the development of the show Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends for Camp Minnie-Mickey. I definitely recommend following the link in the description to read the entire thing. Of course, finish this video first. You know what? For good measure, you might want to finish this video, then watch every other video on my channel, like them all, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, donate to my Patreon, but first set up a Patreon for me because I don't have one, buy my book after I write a book, which might take some time, so while you're waiting for that, rewatch every video on the channel again, and maybe get a second YouTube account so you can like them all a second time. And then, after you've done all that, make sure to go right away to read that interview. It is a really fantastic read. Back on topic, a common feature of mini zoos is an animal showcase, a simple show where handlers take out a couple animals for a short experience where they teach their young audiences some fun facts about them. When Animal Kingdom opened, there were only 2 rides and a couple shows that were traditional theme park experiences. The rest of the park was all the type of stuff you'd find in zoos, but with a sprinkling of pixie dust to make it special, like how the safari ride ends with poachers hunting you down, or the animal trails weave through intricately themed ruins. Disney made a big deal in the marketing to tell people that it was but a lot of the park, especially back then, basically was. So it makes perfect sense that Disney would want a version of an animal showcase here in Animal Kingdom. When trying to figure out what theme to use for the show, Disney Imagineers employ the same strategy that youngest siblings use when getting dressed for middle school. What hand-me-downs did my big brother give me? Disneyland used to have a stage show called The Spirit of Pocahontas that was a retelling of the movie. The show ended in late 1997, so some of the props were up for grabs so they could be reused in Camp Minnie-Mickey. Most notably, the fantastic Grandmother Willow puppet that would serve as a centerpiece for the new show. They did add a new puppet character to the main cast though, Sprig. And I know looking at this picture, you might think this is just the least exciting boss fight from Cuphead. But no, this is Grandmother Willow's grandson, an original character whose existence raises many questions about this tree's family tree. The story of the show is that the forest is in danger from logging. Pocahontas is worried, but Grandmother Willow tells her that one creature has a special gift to protect the forest, so Pocahontas has to bring out some animal friends to try and find what creature it is. Also, Sprig is there for some reason. Pocahontas then teaches the kids about possums, porcupines, skunks, and most adorably of all, a raccoon holding flowers. The exact show could change day by day. The animals weren't trained performers, and any tricks that they did were just stuff they would be doing out in nature. Disney would just do things like replace the dead fish or wad of garbage a raccoon would usually carry with a bundle of flowers. If the animals didn't want to perform or even come out at all, they didn't have to. It's just part of why the plot is kept so simple. It could change on the fly depending on the mood of the animals involved. At the end of the show, we learn that the animal with the power to protect nature is humans. Humans have the power to destroy the environment, but we can also rebuild it. Only you can prevent forest fires. It's a bit heavy-handed of a message, but it was meant for kids in a theme park, so I'd say it's okay to be a bit blunt. This is one of the last things to be added to Animal Kingdom before opening day, and it wasn't even operating during the preview days. Originally it was called Colors of the Wind Friends from the Animal Forest, but that name was horrible and like twice as long as it should be, and guests immediately rejected that name and just called it The Pocahontas Show. So Disney quickly officially changed it to the much simpler Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends. Overall, this was a simple show based on a simple concept zoos around the world were already doing. Disney took a common attraction and made it something special the same way they turned common flat rides into iconic experiences. Sadly, this show only ran for about 10 years before it was converted into stroller parking. Though 10 years is still not a bad run for something originally planned to only last about 2. Of course, it wasn't the only show in Camp Minnie-Mickey. Back in the 90s, Disney parks would often have quickly built promotional parades for new movies. Hercules, Toy Story, Aladdin. There was a temporary parade for nearly every animated Disney movie from this era, and they would often run for about a year each. The Lion King Celebration Parade premiered just days after the movie released on July 1st, 1994 in Disneyland. To Disney's surprise, The Lion King was a massive success. It was the Frozen of the 90s. So the temporary parade lasted 3 whole years until June of 1997. With how small the budget was and how little time they had, Imagineers working on Camp Minnie-Mickey had to be like vultures, circling around anything closing in the second half of 97, scavenging for whatever they could find to build anything they could out of the scraps and remnants. The floats from the parade could serve as a solid moving stage for a Theater in the Round show. Not a traditional stage, but Animal Kingdom wasn't a traditional park. And hey, at that point, beggars really couldn't be choosers. And the themes of The Lion King fit Animal Kingdom like a glove, so it was a perfect choice for a show. And the floats meant it could be done cheaply. But there was still one problem. Walt Disney World already had a Lion King stage show. The legend of the Lion King was an elaborate puppet show in Magic Kingdom that retells the story of the movie. It opened in 1994 and lasted until 2002, and the show was way too popular for them to just drop it in favor of some temporary filler land like Camp Minnie-Mickey was supposed to be. So Animal Kingdom Imagineers had to figure out a way to use the Lion King floats put on a Lion King themed show without telling the story of the Lion King. So much of this new show's development was built around limitations, time constraints, small budgets, and needing to not step on the toes of what all the other parks were doing. Considering all of that, it makes no sense for this show to become anything other than a disaster. And yet, Festival of the Lion King became one of the greatest stage shows ever seen inside a Disney park. Simba and his friends are throwing a huge celebration hosted by 4 humans. Kiyome, meaning masculine or strong, Nakawa, meaning good-looking, Kabibi, meaning princess, and Zawadi, meaning the gift. The show is presented as a sort of circus, where the songs from the movie are turned into acts, like a fire dancer performing to Be Prepared, or acrobats performing on trampolines and monkey bars to Hakuna Matata, all culminating in the Circle of Life, which is remixed into an upbeat party song where kids are invited by the performers to join in and dance along. That wasn't the only time guests got to interact. The audience was divided into 4 sections: warthog, elephant, giraffe, and lion, all based on what parade float they were sitting nearest to. Each of the 4 hosts would lead one of these sections, getting the guests to make animal noises, giving them parts of the songs to sing, and even encouraging them to cheer louder than the other groups. This kind of interactivity added a lot to the show and helped it feel more like a big party rather than just a passive experience. Simply put, this show was fun. Fun performances, fun music, fun interactions. It was just really enjoyable. The show was so beloved that even when Camp Minnie-Mickey closed, it was moved to another land in the park, making it the only Disney attraction I'm aware of to survive the land it was built in being completely demolished. So why was Camp Minnie-Mickey closed if it had such a popular show? Essentially, Animal Kingdom had outgrown it. The quaint pathways couldn't keep up with the growing crowds, leading to the small land being overwhelmed. The character trail gazebos had lines that got so long they overflowed into the main pathway, leading to more issues with overcrowding. Festival of the Lion King was regularly filling the theater beyond its original capacity and still couldn't keep up with demand. This charming, quaint, fun little land just couldn't keep up with the rest of the park. Camp Minnie-Mickey was intended to last only 2 years. It wasn't made to handle the growing crowds of a Disney park that was skyrocketing in popularity. So, in January of 2014, the land was closed to make way for Pandora, the world of Avatar. It's an incredible land, but part of me will always miss this tiny pile of scraps. It defied all odds to become something special. A theme park underdog story that is truly baffling. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Check out the links in the description for some fantastic sources on Disney history that I used while making this video. And don't forget to comment to let me know what baffling history you'd like to see me do next.